guest is running late, i.e. taking a poop, we sing this little ditty. 1, 2, 3, where's Misha? I don't know. Everybody, where's Misha? I don't know. What? Where's Misha? I don't know. I don't know. Where's Misha? I don't know. Well, here's the thing. He could be anywhere, but he's probably somewhere where there's a bathroom. He's sitting down and having a poop. A big poop because he eats, and that's okay because everybody poops and he's Misha. So his poop, it smells like gold. It really does. It smells like gold. I smelled it. Don't ask why, but it smells like gold. That's right, not getting old. Where's Misha? I don't know. I don't know. Where's Misha? I don't know.
I don't know.
Where's Misha? I don't know. You don't know?
I don't know.
Where's Misha? I don't know. Well, here's the thing. Now I'm kind of getting worried because he's really gone. We don't know where he is. Maybe we should call the authorities. 911, maybe they'll know. Now I'm looking out the door and I still don't see him. Everybody's looking at me like, do you know where Misha is? And I say, hey, I'm not Misha's keeper. Where is Misha? I don't know. I really don't know. Where's Misha? I don't know. It's so perfect for this car. Where's Misha? I don't know. I don't know. Where's Misha? I don't know. Oh, I'm looking behind and all I'm getting is this sign. From people who count, and that's why I'm worried. I'm really actually worried. It's not just a song. I think maybe we should do something like put out an APB for missing Misha. Right? An ABC for missing Castiel. What does the B stand for in AB?
All points bulletin.
Oh yeah, APB?
Yeah.
All points Castiel, APC. Oh, wait a minute, now I'm getting word. We're getting there's rumblings that there's someone in the building and he's walking backstage and he looks an awful lot like the band. Hey guys, here's Misha! There he is! There's Misha! There he is! There he is! There's Misha! There he is! This is the guy! There's Misha! There he is! Hi, Mish.
I've heard that song sung many times.
Yeah.
But I've never come backstage when
Really?
you've sounded just so tired.
Yeah.
It sounded like you'd been in it for a long
Yeah, no,
time.
it's rare that I get deep into a third verse. Like, normal days when you're not here, I rock a first verse. Occasionally we'll dip in a second.
Yeah. You just probably don't have as much experience with the third and fourth verses.
I'm not familiar with music. That's not my thing.
He actually, towards the end of the song, got sincerely worried.
Yeah. The third,
Can I tell you how this went just now, by the way? It was like, all right, so we gotta wait for the band to be ready. So you have a little time. We'll take you to the green room. Got to the green room, sat down. My mistake, wrong message. They're on stage singing for you.
Hey, where's Misha?
yeah, the first verse was like, he's obviously taking a poop, but it smells like gold. Don't ask me why I know that, but I do. And that was kind of fun. And then the second one was like, ooh, now I'm getting worried. Where's Misha? And the third was like, I'm honestly worried. Stop the song. You're here, and that's the important
I
thing.
am here, and that is important. I'm happy to see you guys.
Do you need our help for anything? Whoa, 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 whoa. I didn't know it was that kind of show.
Spotters!
You right?
You got it?
Yeah. Do you need our help setting anything up for anything?
No, but I might see about finding a chair of some sort. Or
Can we have a chair for
Oh, yeah.
Misha? We can do that, Misha.
Jump it up.
There are 5 of us. We can make that happen. Don't leave the stage, though. It's a bad idea if you walk away. Because I don't have another verse in me.
I do this. I do the meet and greet, the adventure meet and greet.
Yeah.
And
The one where you set the forest on fire?
there's always somebody in. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's great service. And there's always somebody in the group who is either has the wrong footwear on or is, has a difficult time walking or has a cane or recently, broke their ankle or something. And I'm like, suck it up, come on. Oh, cry me a river. But now that I'm geriatric and have like hip replacements, I was like, guys, can we just stay here? What is an adventure anyway? Can we just have an adventure of words? And the answer is no. They didn't pay for that.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. No, they're going to run you into the ground.
Yeah.
All the way to that new hip.
Why am I getting hip surgery? Because of the adventure meet and greets.
That's right. Well, you did almost burn down one of the cities we were in. I remember that.
That's true. Yeah. Well, in fairness, it wasn't me. It was the fire I started.
That's true. That's true. Good point.
Not to quibble, but
No. That's fair. Guys, I'm going to get out of your hair and leave you all alone with Mr. Misha Collins.
I felt off-center. Oh my God, everything is so weird. How is everyone? By show of force, how many of you are from close by, like within a 50-mile radius? And how many are from further away? Wow, so there are actually more people here from out of town than in town. How many international people? Not that many. Rather feeble showing, actually. What?
It's quality. It's quality. Quality. Quality, not quantity.
Oh, wow. It would be the British that would say that, wouldn't it? So full of yourselves. Your empire is gone. So is ours, though, so. Well, this morning, I spent a fair amount of time in Washington, D.C. in my youth. Actually, right between my youth and my geriatric years. I was here when I was something. Like right early 20s. And I did things like I interned at the White House and I worked at National Public Radio headquarters. And I felt at that time bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and full of hope. Obviously, all of that is gone. And I went this morning, I went by the White House and sort of had a little walk down memory lane. When I was in the White House, this was really the pre-digital age. In fact, when I was working at NPR, I would help edit the audio tape sometimes, which was still audio tape. And the editing was done with a razor blade. We were cutting the tape and taping it back together again. Isn't that amazing? So now does the hip replacement make sense?
Total.
So at the White House, I didn't have a great experience. It was in the Clinton administration, and the one thing that I felt like I got out of it was I wrote an op-ed piece about the Monica Lewinsky scandal and how pretty much every intern in the building would have done the same thing given the opportunity. I've never quite summarized it that way, but I think that does encapsulate the piece. I have to say, just total sidebar, I love what Monica Lewinsky has done in recent years. If anybody's been paying attention to her, she's become like a real incredible voice. And the hindsight, like from looking back through the filtered lens of the post-Me Too era at what she went through back in the 90s, she was such a victim and she was so scrutinized and victimized not only you know, the first time around by her employer, but also by the press and by the public. She was just crucified in a horrible way. And what she's doing now is such a show of resiliency and a testament to a really great character on her part. So, yay, Lewinsky. But I wanted to talk about my accomplishments. We were walking by the White House this morning, and there were some signs up front that me, Vicky, and the kids took pictures in front of, and the signs were like, arrest Trump, impeach Trump, things like that. And I got a phone call in front of the people who were holding up the sign that we had just taken a picture of, and I was like, yeah, we're taking some pictures in front of some pro-Trump banners. And the woman holding it was like, no. No, this is... I think the text speaks for itself. Don't worry. So they have the security gate where the staff of the White House walk out and walk back in again. And there was a kid who was like 22 in a really, really tight-fitting suit that was clearly the suit that his parents had gotten him when he was a sophomore in high school, and now he hadn't gotten a new one yet. I, on the other hand, when I was a White House intern, I had my dad's hand-me-down suit that was 4 sizes too big. So I looked like some strange marionette puppet in the suit. I had 2 suits that I wore, like I alternated days at the White House, and I didn't know anything about wearing a suit. I was like this weird little hippie kid with long hair and tie-dyed shirts that I rarely changed, but I knew that I had to wear a suit when I was in the White House, so I wore the suit, and I got, on the first day, taken aside by my boss at the White House, who was like, Misha, you can't wear those white tube socks. I was like, what are you talking about? What other socks am I supposed to wear? I was completely oblivious. But every day, I'm just rambling, and I'm sorry, but I had to share this story. So every day when I would leave the White House, so you come into the White House, they had a metal detector, and then they would give you this lanyard, sort of like your gold passes or whatever, but significantly less valuable. They give you this lanyard, and and it said White House, official guest, and it was laminated and kind of fancy. And then when you came back out, you dropped your lanyard in for lunch. You would drop your lanyard in the little basket, and then go back out security. And then when you came back, you'd get a new one. And I thought, well, if you put it in your pocket instead of in the dish, who's gonna be the wiser, right? So every day was able to, because of lunch and then going home, I was able to collect 2 top security White House clearance passes a day. And I did what anyone would do with my collection once I was done with my stint in the White House. I made a little mobile, so it looked like this sort of sculptural hanging chandelier of sorts with all of these White House passes. And a friend came over and picked one up. It was hung prominently in my home. And a friend came by and I was like, oh my God, is that real? And I was like, yeah. And then he flipped it around and read the back, and it said it was a felony to have possession of one of these outside of the grounds of the White House. But statute of limitations, motherfucker. I also still have reams of official White House stationery. These are the things that I took away from my experience at the White House. Literally took away. I was going to say I'm not proud, but then
You are.
I am proud. Of course I am. Such an idiot. just so you know what went on in the White House, there was me, and I was like, really like clinically, like probably should have been hospitalized because of it, dyslexic. And I was just like unable to spell anything, still am, but imagine it 100 times worse. And I was in charge of responding to mail that came from other government offices. So like the governor, of Florida would write to the president and I would write back. And of course it was like the governor's intern was writing me the letter and I was writing the letter back. But I guarantee you, like the spelling and punctuation errors that went back to the governor of Florida from Bill Clinton, because he would sign it. What is wrong with Bill Clinton? He must be hammered. He can't string two words together. It was the Office of Presidential Personnel, which is the office that's charged with making presidential appointments. So like when you want to appoint somebody to be Secretary of Agriculture, or there are 3,000 other positions in the government that the president appoints each term. And now, I think there's probably only about 15 people working for the current president, but they all keep quitting. They're like going out, they're on monster.com, like, please, somebody apply for this fucking job. We just need a Secretary of Defense. This looks really bad. But anyway, we would get these applications in too, and we had to sort of process all of the mail, and some of the stuff would be like letters of recommendation coming from, former Secretary of Defense for the position of ambassador to Norway. But some of the applications would be there would be people that were just sending in applications on their own behalf. And one was a former Miss America. I still have her application. She sent in all of these incredibly soft focus booby photos, 8.5 by, or 8 by 10 photos of herself that were borderline pornography, but not quite. And I was there right before Monica Lewinsky, so she knew something that I didn't know about the president, but it was amazing. And then there was another guy who sent in an application that said that he should be Secretary of Agriculture because God spoke to him in the bathroom of the Mayflower Hotel and told him that he should be Secretary of Agriculture. And if he wasn't appointed, he would take matters into his own hands. Anyway, I wrote him back. I wish I still had a copy of my response, but I don't. I wrote back as God. But that's a story for another time. Hi.
Hey there, Agent Beyonce, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
So, you've been an integral part of the show since season 4. It's been on there for a while. So.
Sometimes I'm more of a background extra, but yeah.
Well, when did you really start feeling a part of the cast? Like really part of the Winchester family?
I'm hoping that by the end of this season, I have to say, when you're an actor and you come onto any show as a guest star, or even a recurring guest star, or even a new series regular, you're always coming into it's a bit of a family. Everyone knows each other. You're the new kid at school. It's a little bit hard to figure out what the dynamics are. Sometimes you'll be a guest star on a show, and the stars of the show are prima donnas who hate guest stars. And they try to eat you alive. And I've had that experience, and it's pretty awful. So you come in kind of anxious, people can have you fired at a whim. I don't like that character, get him out of here. Especially when my character on Supernatural was recurring, I was really wanted to be liked. And really wanting to be liked is a surefire way to not be liked. So everyone can smell that kind of desperation. But I also hadn't watched Supernatural when I got on the show.
That's a recurring theme.
Still haven't, but I I was unaware of the fact that like the supernatural characters on the show, like the demons and whatnot, sort of act more or less like regular people. So when I heard that I was an angel, I created a little kind of strange character that I thought was like this angelic character. And Jared and Jensen were like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Has he not watched the show? And I had. So it's not my fault. So it was. It took a little while to like feel like I was a part of the group, and then also because I was, I wasn't a regular character. You never know when your character is going to be killed off, and Supernatural has a habit of killing people off, or non-people, and so I was always like, oh, am I going to get killed off? How long am I going to last? And it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe like, oh, you know what it was? It was when I went in to speak with the writers in season 7, and they said, here's how it's going to go this season. You're going to be killed a couple episodes in, and that'll be it. You're not coming back. And I was like, oh, I really feel like part of the family now. No, it was when. So when they resurrected me at the end of season 7, and I felt like, oh, you know what? They can't even successfully kill me off. I feel like I'm sticking around. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Hi.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, thanks.
I was going to ask what the biggest influence over the cookbook was, but that seems inappropriate.
Yeah, that's
because the kids are
inappropriate.
here.
Yeah, it's a children's family cookbook. Come on. Shame
Was there,
on you.
was there a recipe that did not make the cut that you wish did? Or?
I can do one better. There's a recipe that did make the cut that I wish didn't. So the cookbook has it is a cookbook, and it is designed to help families make some tasty things together. But it's designed to do more than that. It's also designed to introduce kids to new foods, and it's also designed to help show families how cooking and eating together can be a bonding experience and even a conduit of love. Like it can be a way that you can convey love and affection to your young ones, and they can reciprocate in turn. And so it's about all of those things. So. And part of that process is about giving the children license to explore and helping them see that the kitchen is not a scary place, but it's a playground where they can be inventors and they can feel empowered. And they shouldn't always, because sometimes they make disgusting things. And one of those things, we do this thing from time to time in the morning, where I'll say, let's make something that no one has ever made before for breakfast. And they're like, oh, great idea. And this was one of those instances. They said, how about breakfast popsicles? And I thought, great, we have orange juice. And they thought, great, we have orange juice and bacon and eggs. And so we put scrambled eggs and cooked bacon and orange juice and toast in the blender. Sorry, I'm still getting the chills. And then we froze it. And they waited by the freezer like they were watching the Olympics. Like they couldn't wait for this thing to come out. And I, on the other hand, was sitting there like I was about to be executed. And it came out of, this has been proven in our experimenting over and over again, but when the kids are part of if it's their invention and if they're part of the process, they think it's great no matter how awful it is. And so they ate 2 breakfast popsicles each. And I was like, And Vicky and I fought about that particular item in the cookbook because she was like, but this is showing like their inventiveness and also proving the fact that if a child is involved in the process that they will want to explore new foods. And I was like, I don't care. It's putting something evil into the world. And so she won that argument, and we sent the draft to the publisher, and the publisher said, guys, we love the cookbook. There's a recipe in here that's a sin. And would you be okay if we removed the breakfast popsicles? And I said, thank you. And I was like, I fist pumped, and I was like, suck it, Vic. And then the publisher wrote back 2 weeks later. It was like, I just can't stop thinking about that recipe. I think we should put it back in. I looked at that, I reread the book, and I feel like it should go back in. And so, unfortunately, and this is a public apology, I'm sorry, but that is in there. Thanks. That might be, hold on a second. As I limp backstage. That might be a good segue. Is that a good segue, you guys? Wasn't that a good segue? Wouldn't that have been good timing if you came out right then?
You can pay me later.
Thank you for that. Good. Is the breakfast popsicle? It is, in fact, in there, right?
And a special page.
Oh, thank God they didn't do a photo.
Oh, no.
I think they're samples.
Sorry, bear with me. Do you want to come out? Do you want to come out on stage? Do you want to just pop out?
We definitely, we want Vicky to come out, right?
Yes.
So, full disclosure, Vicky is here this weekend on the condition that I did not bring her up on stage. But I thought, do you want to just stay up here and talk to them for a while? Vicky's going to be signing at the same time that I'm signing. She's going to be signing the cookbooks. So if anybody wants to come up and talk with her for a long time. Okay, you can go. Are you gonna forgive me for that?
But you're doing it
That's
well.
a vigorous head shaking.
If you were a tree, what tree would you be?
Willow.
Oh.
Sorry.
Sorry for making you stand there. Okay, so maybe raise your hand if you want. We're going to do a cooking. What am I doing? We're doing we already figured this out and we made a plan. Can you not yell at me in front of my friends? Okay, go. Okay. This is called a cooking demonstration, and we're doing it without cooking anything.
All right.
Well, while this is happening, we can. I went up and visited with Vicky and the kids. We went up and visited my grandmother. Can you please be quiet? went up and visited my grandmother who lives in Baltimore yesterday, and this, we brought this for this demonstration. This is my grandmother's cutting board. Isn't that awesome? She was like on a farm in Indiana, chopping, I don't know, probably the hearts of babies or something on this. It just occurred to me, I don't know what has been cut over the 4 generations on this. She may have been a serial killer, I don't know that much about her. But she was a Collins, her last name was Collins, so that's where my stage name comes. Okay, so you guys have, so this is one of the recipes in the book that children really love, and parents love it too, as long as the lid is screwed on properly, so don't do what you're doing. Yeah. Okay, so, wait, are there any children in the audience? Are there any children who want to do this in the audience? Yeah, 'cause that's not one of them. That child just tried to crawl back into the womb. Any children that want to volunteer? Okay, you may be under 18, that's not what I was thinking. That child is too small. None of the children here are meeting our criteria. Okay, we have one. Okay, yeah, you come too.
It's weird.
Okay. Maybe the people who are younger than 12 can come up on stage here. No, you're not. I don't know how old you are, but come up here. You can pass for 12. But we need to steal from 2 adults. Are you an adult? Do we have 2 adults who will be willing to give up their, or 4 adults who'd be willing to give up their jars right now? They didn't understand what they were going. Come on.
You got one.
Come on.
You got one.
You just earned a higher place in the afterlife. Okay, so now you have to shake it up. What we call it hop and shake. This is hop and shake butter. What you have in there is whipping cream. You will have to do it a hell of a lot more vigorous than you do. More vigorous. Up and down. Put it back into it. Why are you sitting in a chair? Stand up. Now you have to spin around a little bit when you do it. It's called hop and shake. Okay, so you keep shaking vigorously. That's probably never going to work. And then when you feel a thunk inside, see why I wanted the lid screwed on? When you feel a thunk inside, you know that you're done. You with the baseball hat on, you're not. It's not. You need to put more muscle into it. Yeah. I'm feeling so judgy right now.
As opposed to win.
You're going to feel it all of a sudden, it's going to be very clear. It'll feel like there's like a ball of something inside instead of a foamy bit. Are you there? First person there wins. You won! Nope. It's close, but it's not. That's whipped cream. You're one. Are you there? I think you gotta go a little further. He's no screaming. You're also gonna see water, a fluid emerge. You have to be kind of vigorous. Yeah. Okay, so that's the telltale sign. You see that at the bottom? That's buttermilk, and it's separated. It's separated from a butter pup. And isn't that magic? Yeah, you got a lot of buttermilk in yours. Good work. That's very well done. Wait, who should I take? Yours. Okay, who's not done? Because we want to have a winner, but we also want to have a loser. That's something in our family that we always make sure every experience. Sir, you're a candidate? No, you got it? Done? I think I want to see a little bit more shaking. Oh my God, it's solid! Maybe see if you can get a little more watery stuff out of that. So, No, that's definitely not there. You better hurry because there's other people. Okay, so now you guys. All right. Well, I'm going to say that we did it. Now we're going to. So this is one of the recipes that's in the book, you guys. And what we have here is this where we're supposed to collect their stuff. Oh, okay. So we have for you guys, if you want, you have two options. So once you're done, you unscrew the lid, and you can either drink the buttermilk. It's not poisonous. Or we have a spittoon here that's coming around, and you can just pour it into that, and we'll collect it away, and then you'll just have butter left. And you can bring this butter home with you, but you also have the opportunity to decorate your butter. And this is, we have here, these are onion blossoms, or chive blossoms, I can't remember. And this is borage, which is a kind of edible flower, which you can put in there. This is corn flour, which is very blue, hence the term cornflower blue. These are sunflower petals, I think. And then we also have some jam that I made from strawberries that we picked. You can swirl that in there, and there's some utensils. And then we also have bread over here, and we'll pass out some bread and butter for you guys because you deserve more, but that's what you'll get. Okay, so I think what? Oh yeah, am I supposed to do this? Yeah. So watch, this is you can't really see. Hey, how about you guys clear away? Okay. So this is the Hoppin' shake butter that Vicky made in the car on her way over here. And it doesn't come out of the jar, but it's... Oh, thank you. That's so much better. So this is not a one-handed job.
That's what she said.
And then we add a little bit of... I'm not going to do the jam. I'm going to do the salt. This is... These are not nicotine mints. I know!
Yeah, just open it and just try to keep the butter inside.
I was doing it wrong, by the way.
Sorry.
Okay, it's done. So now maybe we should move this over there so that folks can come up and no, we have all this bread. It's going to someone. These people are? Okay. Look how beautiful, you guys. See? It's butter. How many of you have made butter before at home? So there's an opportunity for some of you now, when you're really bored, to make one of the most inexpensive things possible, which is butter. It's really efficient use of your time. And now my great-great-grandmother's cutting board has been on TV. I bet she never thought that would happen. All right. Did you just fall down the ramp? Okay. That's it. That's the whole demonstration. Those of you who are still in the front in the butter brigade, maybe you can like kind of clear off to the sides now. And you have, I think that you have bread and butter. And if you would like to help disperse that to people, or you can selfishly keep the butter yourself, it's up to you. You can sort of just learn a little bit about what kind of person you are through this experience. Yeah, that butter should be handed out too. I'm not going to eat it all. And maybe some of that jam. Oh, they can swirl. Wait, these guys, if they want to swirl in salt and flowers and jam, they can too. Oh, you do? Okay, all right. I didn't know what was in, as usual. Apparently, the creation staff was like, wait, so what are we doing? We have like 50 loaves of bread here and a bunch of cream. And someone said, I'm sure Misha has a plan. And Victoria said, do you know him? What are you doing? You're still working on yours, huh? Oh, did you pour off your buttermilk?
No, I was gonna drink.
Okay, all right. I like your, let me see. Do you like buttermilk?
I guess so.
Have you had it before?
Yeah, a little bit.
I like buttermilk. That was an interesting conversation. Okay, everyone, settle down. We used to have a guy named, when I was in elementary school, there was a guy named Mr. Brown who lived up in Shelburne, Mass. And he had a truck and he would deliver milk in glass bottles from his farm. His name was literally Farmer Brown. And we would skim the cream off the top of the milk and make butter the old-fashioned way, and loved, I don't know why it brought such joy to us, but it's something that we did as kids, and I always was like fighting my brother for the buttermilk at the end. We fought about everything though, in fairness, so it wasn't special. All right, does anybody have any other questions? We'll get back to this. Hi.
Hi, I'm Nalani. I know you already saw me earlier today.
Yes, we've had a couple of encounters today. We met by the elevators, and we met in photo ops, I believe.
Yeah.
But we haven't exchanged names yet. I'm Misha.
Hi. I know. I'm Nalani. Hi.
I know, you just told me.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. This question is for, my friend Iris asked me to ask you this, and I also want to ask it because she's awesome and she couldn't be here today.
Great, well if you wanted to ask it, you didn't need to bring Iris in at all.
No, she would kill me if I didn't bring it in.
Got it.
Yes, she's one of those friends.
Okay.
Sorry, Iris.
She wants credit for everything, huh?
Yeah, sorry, Iris.
Is Iris here?
No, she couldn't come to the con, but
Okay.
she wanted me to ask this.
Well, I know that.
Yeah. What was your favorite TV show growing up?
Well, how do you define growing up?
Last week.
I can tell you, when I was in first grade, I remember the other kids in the class watching Doctor Who and talking about Doctor Who. And so I thought, oh, I should get in on this Doctor Who business. And I went home and tried to watch the like early 80s version of Doctor Who, which had this like weird, trippy, psychedelic, like 70s music, kaleidoscopic, creepy intro. No, this was like really, really trippy stuff. And that intro was terrifying to me. I couldn't make it past that, so I did not watch Doctor Who. But we would go, my parents separated when I was 3. And we would go, when I was very young, we would go to my dad's house on Friday nights. And we would spend the night with him on Fridays. And Fridays, so that was very special for me for 2 reasons. 1, I got to see my dad. 2, we weren't allowed to watch TV at my mom's house. And so this was my opportunity to watch TV. And on Friday nights, there was a show on called Dukes of Hazzard. Which basically, I'm on the modern day Dukes of Hazzard right now. Like when people ask about, like, what's your, oh, I've never heard of that, I don't watch a lot of TV. I'm like, yeah, you do, you just don't watch our show, liar. And then they say, what's it like? And I say, well, it's like Dukes of Hazzard meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I think that's basically true. And I'm Enos, for those of you who are I can't believe I just remembered that name. So I used to love watching Dukes of Hazzard, and then things got better, because on Friday nights after Dukes of Hazzard, Knight Rider started coming on. Which is also, amazingly, another show about a black car. Maybe I have a fetish. And then there was, I know you do. And then there was another, and then over time things shifted a little bit. There was another show that, I guess every once in a while we would end up catching Dallas on a Friday night.
Yeah.
We would catch,
Knots Landing. Miami Vice.
I want to say we ended up watching The Love Boat and Fantasy Island at some point. And it's funny, my entire window into television was only what was airing on broadcast television on Friday nights. So that was my entire universe of television. And I think I pretty much liked everything. Love Boat I wasn't crazy about. Sorry to say.
Thank you. Iris is quite possibly the biggest Doctor Who fan on the face of the planet.
Oh, really?
So she's really going to enjoy this video.
You know, you're not supposed to video this. Hi.
Hi.
Tell Iris I said goodbye. Hi.
The last episode that aired for us, because we didn't have an episode this week, so our last one was the week before.
Okay. Thank you for telling me.
The last scene was that kind of like big scene between Dean and Cass that was like super emotional. So what was it like with Jensen to film that, and like what was your guys' reaction to reading that? How did you guys get into that, and were you guys like super emotional afterwards?
That was that was more than one question. Can someone please tell this one is just one question? Well, we actually had a conversation about that scene recently when we were shooting. And it was, I'll tell you what precipitated the conversation. So Jake Abel has been back on the show, and that hasn't aired, right? Well, let me tell you what happens. So Jake has been back on the show, and he's had, I'm not going to tell you the exact details of what he's doing, but I want to. But he's had a really challenging role on the show from an actor standpoint. Like the stuff that he's had to do is like, I would see that and I would be like, I think I have a sore throat today. I can't come into work. So it's really challenging stuff, and he has been really delivering. And one of the things that we have noticed as the regular cast on the show with Jake is that we'll do a second take. A lot of times guest stars on the show are nervous and they've been practicing a lot, and they come in and the director will ask for a change, and they won't really be able to change because they're just like, they figured out one way to say it and they're nervous and they're just sort of stuck in that line reading. But without being prompted by the director, Jake is always giving a really different performance on each take and doing a really great job. And me, Jared, and Jensen were in a scene with him, and we were like, oh God. Like you can't just come in here and then do acting. This is making us look really bad. So we had a stern talking to with him, and we straightened him out. We're like, look dude, if you want to work on this show, you can't be like this. Gotta start phoning it in like us. But after we've been shooting Supernatural for 34 years, and after a while, it's easy to just it's easy to get a little bit lazy, and every once in a while we're like, we know our characters well, we can go through the motions well, and it doesn't take, we can show up at work and not have done a ton of preparation, and still, fans will still keep watching the shit, so we'll just keep, like, all right, they didn't shut the TV off after that, we can get away with anything. But Jensen and I had a conversation, and it was a little bit precipitated by what a stellar job Jake was doing. And the conversation was like, yeah, you know, it reminded us, we were reflecting of that scene that we did at the end of that episode where both of us felt like, you know, like we actually got, you know, really kind of emotionally engaged in the scene, and it felt like we were really connecting and not, you know, I mean, a lot of times we connect when we're shooting, but it's like because somebody's tickling someone's balls below frame and trying to make them laugh, you know, that's the way we connect. So to actually have a moment where it really felt like, oh yeah, that's like, it was a nice reminder of you know, how connected the characters are and how connected we are deep down to the characters, and it felt good. And that, in spite of the fact that, you know, when we went into that scene feeling like, does you know, where is all this emotion coming from? Can we justify it? And somehow it felt like, yeah, we figured it out, and it worked. It worked for us anyway. But, you know, I could sit up here and compliment myself for hours, so I'll move on to another question. Thank you. Hi.
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you again. It's been too long. It's been over an hour.
So my question is, now that we have slight basis for the beginning of the season, but we're still pretty early in. So what would you like to see happen between Cass and other characters this season?
I guess I think it would be nice, I mean, you know how we have a lot of biblical lore on the show? I think it would be nice if Cass were to have the opportunity to get to know more of the characters on the show in the biblical sense. That was so clever. I should probably just stop right there. I think that question for Castiel of like, the gentleman earlier asked about like feeling like he belongs and is part of the family. I think that sort of exploring that question, you know, Cass and Dean are at loggerheads, to say the least, at the outset of the season, and that is not quickly resolved. So what you saw last 2 weeks ago at the end of the episode, that's, you know, still going for some time, and I think a resolution of that conflict, but also like, you know, the Winchesters for Cass are his connection to humanity, and not just that, it's his only real connection to any beings in the world anymore. Without the Winchesters, he has nothing. And by the way, without the Winchesters have nothing. Like, this little unit is pretty self-contained. It's not like there's a broad social network of support. It's not like when they have problems, they have a lot of shoulders to cry on. It's a pretty tight-knit group who really depend on one another and who aren't good at talking about their feelings. So it's a recipe for emotional disaster. And I think that story is something that I'd like to see resolved in some way for Cass, and I'd like to see him feel like he belongs. But you know, I don't know how happy of an ending this show has in store for Cass or the brothers. But I do think, you know, from the conversations I've had with writers on the show, I think that the conclusion will have a finality to it. It won't feel like it's a to-be continued story. If at least one of you doesn't cry, I'll be disappointed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, Misha. I just want to go off topic a bit with poetry.
Sorry.
Hi.
Yeah, we try to stick to the topic here. It's just one of the rules of creation shows. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've noticed. So lately you had posted some poems that you were using during the E4K thing.
So it got me thinking, what poets influenced you in wanting to write poetry, and which ones do you absolutely abhor?
I actually just read an article this morning in Vice about a woman who created an Instagram poetry account that garnered quite a few followers. And she was doing an experiment to see if she could write total garbage and have people like it. And she was really shocked and disappointed to find the results were yes, she could get people to like it, and yes, it was total garbage. So there's an interesting phenomenon right now. I'm not going to name names, but I'll say that there is an interesting phenomenon in poetry right now, which is, by the way, I'll just say the two poets that I think influenced me the most are Rilke and Mary Oliver. But there are, I also like some of the older Sufi poets. By older, I mean like many hundreds of years ago, like Rumi. But that's the short answer. And then the longer answer is that right now there's a resurgence of poetry because of Instagram, which is really counterintuitive and totally bizarre. And on balance, I think it's a good thing because I think it's causing a lot of younger people to discover that poetry even exists and that further written words exist. And so I think that that's a good thing. But I think that the form has been a little bit co-opted by some really trite garbage. So there are a lot of Instagram poets who there's some that are like kind of famous who have actually been plagiarizing other poets, and there are some that are writing these, uplifting, pithy little poems that are just empty. They're not poems. They're just phrases. So I cringe at some of that, but I'm also happy that some of these books that are being now published in print by Instagram poets are reaching bestseller lists. So for poetry that's not written by a superstar poet laureate poet to be getting on the bestseller list is in some respects a good thing, but it's also bad. So it's a complicated issue as far as I'm concerned. And I write poems, and I wonder, am I writing garbage too? Should I press delete all and reset the hard drive to make sure these don't get out in the world? But I spent too much time writing them to do that, so I'm going to send them out there, and I don't care if they're terrible. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello. I was going to ask you something about India, but I changed my question based on what you were asking.
I was hoping we were going to get an India question.
I know,
Shit.
India here. So it's more of a president thing. I don't know if you remember the awkward exchange between Melania and Michelle Obama with the whole Tiffany blue box gift. What gift would you give the outgoing president if you were coming into office?
The outgoing president, I would give Tim with handcuffs. What was your India question?
Well, next time, what places would you see in India?
What places did I see in India?
No, would you see next on your next trip? I'm not gonna. You have to go again, so.
Okay, I do?
Should. Go every 2 years with me.
Do you go every 2 years?
I do go every 2 years.
Where do you live? Or where are you from? Or where do you go?
Delhi and Punjab area.
Okay, very cool. I've never been there. So that's where I would go. We went to India, Vicky and I went to India in 1995, and we had like a really adventurous trip. She had been there when she was 16, shortly after we met. She went and worked in the Sofash orphanage in Pune and raised a bunch of money, and then they were like, hey, we have this baby that somebody back in the States wants to adopt. Can you bring it back for us? This is how the world was when we were 16. And she was like, sure, I'll take the baby. And they gave her a little box of formula and a package of diapers and sent her with an infant flying back to DC from what was Bombay at the time. And then flights were canceled. She was stuck for, it took her like 4 days to get back. She was 16 years old, and she had this infant with no instructions. She had no idea what to do with it, and it was like crying constantly, and it was sick, and she didn't know what to do. And she got back determined to never have children. But we had a great adventure when we were in India, and one of the things, I don't know if you guys have seen the documentary on Netflix, Wild Wild Country. It's fascinating, and it's about the Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh cult that was in Oregon at the time. And they were kicked out of Oregon for all sorts of nefarious things, including murder and whatever, and poisoning an entire town, stuff like that. And everyone in Oregon was like, oh, you're not allowed to do that here. And so they made them leave. And the cult leader had, at one point I think he ended up having like 50 Rolls Royces. He had a fleet of Rolls Royces. And so we decided we would infiltrate the cult, which had been transplanted to Pune, India. And so we went through the initiation process, and we had this plan to smuggle in the camera. We had this high-8 camera, and we were going to smuggle it in and document like what really happens inside this cult. But then we were going to do it with 2 of our Indian friends, and they wouldn't let local Indians into the group at the time. And Vicky and I we lost our shit. We're like, that's racist, you can't ever. And then they didn't let us into the cult. So that was a sort of failed endeavor. But anyway,
Thank you very
I have more stories, but I'm not going to share them. Hi.
Hi, Misha. Congratulations on the new book.
Thank you.
I was curious how you guys went about picking the recipes that you put in it.
Well, we cast a wide net. We sent out emails to our family members and our closest friends and asked if they who had kids, and asked if they had any recommendations. And then we had been assembling, not with the intention of writing a cookbook, but we had been making a little binder of our favorite meals that we had cooked with the kids for some time. And so we had quite a collection of recipes already. And then we invited the kids to experiment with things. So we created we spent about 6 months turning the kitchen into a laboratory and having the kids help us invent some of the recipes. So it was a mashup of different things. But in the end, we had way too many recipes, and we had to pull a lot of them, most of them out. And that's why I was like, I don't understand how I can't pull fucking breakfast popsicles out.
Hello. So you said earlier with the first question related to Castiel being that angelic figure you thought he should be because you never watched Supernatural before then.
Yes.
How did you get to where Castiel was, and then as he's grown over the seasons, where he's now? Where did that inspiration come from?
Do you have about 300 hours?
I do.
Where did the inspiration come from? Well, I think that the scripts ultimately, I mean, my personality informed the character. The scripts informed the character. I think, you know, there are a lot of things that as a new script and a new storyline comes along, you have to really sort of consciously make an effort to make changes to the character to accommodate those changes. Like when Cass becomes Lucifer, you have to really adapt to be Lucifer. But also, much more subtly, when you're playing a character for this long, and this is something that none of you are ever going to have the problem with because characters do not last this long on television, but one of the things that's been interesting for me to explore is the fact that as Castiel has an experience, like being Lucifer or becoming human for a while, I then come back to regular Cass, but having done that as that character, it changes the character a little bit. Without me being like, don't forget, there's like a little bit of that memory of what Lucifer did to you or something like that. It just sort of happens organically. And having been human has definitely affected how Cass relates to humans. Suddenly he just has a more empathetic understanding. He's not quite the same fish out of water that he was before. He knows what toothpaste tastes like now. So Cass, you know, changes over time, and a lot of it is, you know, is specific and conscious efforts that I make that are related to specific story points. And then a lot of it is just, I can just sense that the character has changed over time because he's been through a lot of different things. And I think that it's fair.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It's always fun. Boo.
We lost Borja.
Boo.
They were booing at Borja anyways.
Yeah,
They're just
excited about Halloween, that's all.
Why come
Give
back?
yourself a.
We miss you.
You gonna answer another
We're nothing without you. Oh, you play hard to get so badly. Were you saying that my performance has been inconsistent? Is that what you're getting at?
I'm not getting inconsistent at all. You are fantastic. I hope that helped your ego.
Whatever,
too.
nice save. Hi. This is the last question, probably. Yeah.
You'll be back tomorrow. There's more, we're not done yet.
I'm gonna try to make sure Jensen doesn't talk too much. That guy is
No.
Hey, we get it. You.
You're so hot.
Well, I mean, you share your inner monologue, I'll share mine.
Okay, sorry. Ooh, Mr. So hot.
Hi.
So I think a lot of us would agree that you would make a great president, but
I am so... Aren't you guys glad we asked one more question? Thanks, you can collect your money backstage.
but I wanted to know if Cass was elected president, what would be his first order of business, and do you think he would do a good job?
I think Cass would do a fucking terrible job as president. Because Cass is always so worried about, like, oh, I don't want anybody to have hurt feelings, or I don't want anybody to get injured. And, you know, sometimes as a president, you have to make difficult decisions, right? Like, are we going to once and for all get rid of daylight savings time? Right? Like the tough choices.
Very topical.
Yeah. And I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like we're all gonna have this experience.
Yeah. Or like,
which is gonna be good now, but it's
like,
gonna be bad.
are we
in the
gonna,
spring.
what's that?
When is it good and when is it bad? Daylight savings?
Today's good.
Today's
You
good.
get an extra hour.
So obviously I don't want to not do it now.
Start it tomorrow.
We'll start the whole no daylight savings time
In the spring.
in the spring.
When it's bad.
Yeah, vote for me. But I think Cass has the problem. Like I think he would have a terrible time of collateral damage. Like if there was a hostage situation, like Carter had to deal with, he would deal with it exactly how Carter did, like worrying about the hostages, you know, which is not what you want to do as president. You just want to go in with all your tanks and kill everybody, right?
And tweet about it.
Wait, never mind. Don't vote for me. I think Cass would have his heart in the right place, and he would try his hardest to do the right thing, and he wouldn't be serving at the interests of his cronies or his friends or his donors. He would be trying to do the right thing for the world and for humanity. So I think that he would be not only refreshing, but a good president. Yes. There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, you love him. He'll be back again tomorrow. Mr. Misha! It's cold here. McConnell, so that should be fun. Check it out. And what else? Stay hydrated and eat your dinner and your peas and your vegetables. I don't know. And we'll see you tonight for the rock show. And again.